Once upon a time, in the prosperous kingdom of Shandanapuram, there lived a poor Brahmin named Dharmaraju in a small village. He resided with his wife Lakshmi, their daughter Sumati, and two sons, Arjun and Veer. One evening, as he sat lost in deep thought, his wife Lakshmi noticed his distress and approached him. She gently inquired about his worries, to which he expressed his concerns. He lamented that while he had always managed to provide for his family, now, with Sumati's marriage on the horizon, he found himself helpless. He had no savings for the wedding expenses, and his sons, though well educated in the Gurukul, were still in the process of finding suitable employment. The burden of their future, coupled with the immediate responsibility of his daughter's marriage, left him feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Lakshmi, ever the supportive wife, reassured him that weddings were divine events that occurred only with the blessings of God and the support of well-wishers. She reminded him that they were not alone and that help could come from beyond their village. She spoke of the kingdom's ruler, Maharaja Kartikeya, known far and wide for his wisdom, justice, and generosity. She suggested that Dharmaraju seek the king's assistance, as it was a ruler's duty to care for his subjects. She argued that requesting aid for their daughter's wedding was not begging, but rather seeking rightful support for a noble cause. Though initially reluctant, Dharmaraju eventually acknowledged the wisdom in his wife's words. He had never asked anyone for financial help before, and approaching the king felt daunting. However, Lakshmi's encouragement gave him the confidence to try. She urged him to take their sons, Arjun and Veer, along, believing that they could provide support in any way necessary. The following day, Dharmaraju and his two sons set out for the royal palace. Upon reaching the grand gates, they were stopped by the palace guards, who informed them that entry was not permitted without prior approval from the king. Dharmaraju humbly explained his purpose, stating that he was a poor Brahmin seeking the king's help for his daughter's wedding. Moved by his sincerity, one of the guards relayed his request to Maharaja Kartikeya. Upon receiving permission, Dharmaraju and his sons were led into the royal court. Standing before the majestic throne, Dharmaraju bowed with respect. Maharaja Kartikeya, observing the noble Brahmin and his sons, inquired about the reason for their visit. Dharmaraju explained his predicament in detail, expressing his inability to afford his daughter's wedding and his hope that the king might offer financial assistance. Listening attentively, Maharaja Kartikeya acknowledged that aiding in Sumati's marriage was indeed a small matter. However, he stated that in his kingdom, no one received assistance without first proving their wisdom. He explained that he always tested those who sought his help, ensuring that they were deserving of his support. With determination, Dharmaraju and his sons readily accepted the challenge, prepared to undergo any trial the king set before them. Pleased with their confidence, Maharaja Kartikeya decided to test them through a series of moral and intellectual challenges. He narrated 3 distinct stories, each containing a dilemma, and after each tale he posed a question to test their judgment. The first challenge was directed at Dharmaraju. The king recounted a story of a loyal servant who was tasked with investigating a mysterious bird's cry. However, on his way, he encountered a distressed woman whose husband was being tortured by thieves. Choosing to save the man rather than completing his given task, the servant failed to report back to the king. The following night, The king himself set out to investigate and, instead of finding the bird, overheard two spies conspiring to attack the kingdom. By taking immediate action, the king thwarted the enemy's plan. Realizing the servant had also acted for the greater good, the king released him from imprisonment. After narrating this, Maharaja Kartikeya posed his question. Why did the king forgive the servant despite his initial disobedience? Dharmaraju contemplated the matter before replying that the servant had acted out of moral duty, prioritizing the immediate danger of a helpless man over his direct order. Similarly, the king himself had forgotten about the bird when faced with a greater threat. This realization led him to pardon the servant. The king, pleased with the response, acknowledged Dharmaraju's wisdom and declared that he had passed the test. Having witnessed their intelligence and virtue, Maharaja Kartikeya made a surprising proclamation. Not only would he arrange Sumati's wedding with great honor, but he also proposed an alliance between their families. He expressed his wish for his own daughters to marry Arjun and Veer, believing that they were extraordinary men worthy of becoming royal sons-in-law. Dharmaraju was astonished by the proposal, knowing that traditionally Brahmins and royalty did not intermarry. However, the king dismissed such norms, valuing wisdom above birthright. He saw Dharmaraju's sons as true gems and had no reservations about accepting them into the royal family. Thus, with the blessings of Maharaja Kartikeya, Sumati's wedding was held with grandeur in the royal palace. Simultaneously, Arjun and Veer were wed to the king's daughters, forging a strong familial bond between the noble Brahmin and the royal lineage.